What if the next movie you watch turns out to be something you never even knew existed? Streaming platforms are filled with thousands of films, but only a small percentage ever become famous. Hidden among them are movies with incredible stories, unforgettable performances, shocking twists, disturbing mysteries, and moments that stay in your mind long after the credits. Today, we're going beyond the obvious choices and uncovering 15 movies that deserve much more attention. Some of these films are intense thrillers, some are dark mysteries, some are emotional dramas, and others completely change direction when you least expect it. So if you're looking for something genuinely different to watch, keep going, because one of these hidden gems could become your next unforgettable movie. Green Room, 2015. A struggling punk band accepts a performance at an isolated club. They don't know much about the place. They simply need the money. After finishing their performance, they accidentally witness something they were never supposed to see. And suddenly, they aren't allowed to leave. The club is controlled by dangerous people who will do anything to keep their secret. The band members retreat into a small backstage room. They lock the door. They have almost no weapons, no real plan, and no idea how many people are outside. What follows is an incredibly tense survival thriller. The characters aren't professional fighters. They're musicians. They have limited experience with violence, and their fear feels completely believable. The people outside are organized and ruthless. They know the building. They have weapons. And they have time. The band has none of those advantages. The movie creates tension by constantly changing the balance of power. Sometimes the musicians find a way to defend themselves. Then the attackers adapt. Sometimes escape seems possible. Then another obstacle appears. The small backstage room becomes a prison. Every door matters. Every window matters. Every sound outside creates anxiety. The film also refuses to make violence look glamorous. When people are injured, the consequences are serious. Characters struggle to move. They panic. They make mistakes. And those mistakes can cost lives. Patrick Stewart gives a chilling performance as the leader of the group outside. He doesn't need to constantly shout or threaten people. His calm behavior makes him even more frightening. The band gradually realizes that the people surrounding them aren't simply trying to scare them. They are trying to eliminate everyone who knows what happened. That turns the situation into a desperate battle for survival. The final act becomes increasingly chaotic. The characters have to decide whether they should stay and fight or risk trying to escape. Every option could be fatal. Green Room is one of those movies that grabs your attention early and refuses to let go. It doesn't need a complicated mystery. It takes a simple situation and asks one terrifying question. How long could ordinary people survive if they were trapped in a room surrounded by people who wanted them dead? The answer is brutal. The Night House, 2020. After her husband dies unexpectedly, Beth remains alone in the lakeside house they built together. She tries to continue living normally, but something feels wrong. She begins having strange dreams. She sees shapes in the darkness. She hears sounds inside the house. And she discovers disturbing information about her husband's past. At first, Beth assumes grief is affecting her mind. But the strange events continue. She starts discovering photographs and hidden materials that suggest her husband may have been keeping enormous secrets. The house itself begins feeling different. Rooms appear distorted. Dark shapes seem to move. And Beth becomes increasingly obsessed with finding out what her husband was hiding. The movie uses grief as the foundation for its horror. Beth isn't simply afraid of something supernatural. She's afraid that the person she loved may have been someone she never truly understood. As she investigates, she discovers that her husband had been researching something strange. The deeper she goes, the more disturbing the answers become. The film constantly blurs the line between psychological trauma and supernatural horror. Is Beth imagining what she sees? Or is something actually there? The house becomes increasingly oppressive. The lake outside adds another layer of isolation. And Beth begins realizing that her husband's secrets may have been connected to her own existence in ways she never imagined. The final act brings together the emotional and supernatural elements. Beth must confront both her grief and whatever has been following her. The night house is effective because the horror isn't simply about being attacked. It's about discovering that someone you trusted may have been living an entirely different life behind your back. And sometimes the secrets left behind by a dead person can be more frightening than death itself. The Machinist, 2004. Trevor Resnick hasn't slept properly in almost a year. His body is becoming dangerously thin. His mind is deteriorating. And he keeps seeing a mysterious man who may not even exist. Trevor works at a factory where his life is defined by routine. Insomnia. Repeat. But his lack of sleep begins affecting his ability to function. Then an accident at the factory changes everything. Trevor becomes convinced that someone is deliberately targeting him. He starts seeing strange notes. A mysterious figure appears. People behave as though they know something he doesn't. His paranoia grows. But the audience doesn't know whether Trevor is discovering a conspiracy or losing his mind. Christian Bale's physical transformation is one of the most unforgettable elements of the film. He appears almost skeletal, making Trevor look less like an ordinary worker and more like someone slowly disappearing. The movie's dark industrial atmosphere reinforces his mental state. Machines constantly move. Lights flicker. The environment feels cold and mechanical. Trevor's life becomes increasingly disconnected from reality. He begins investigating the mysterious man. But every answer creates another question. Who is this person? Why does Trevor keep seeing him? And why can't Trevor remember certain events? The movie gradually reveals that Trevor's insomnia isn't the only problem. His mind is protecting him from something. Something he has done. Something he refuses to remember. As the story moves toward its conclusion, the mystery becomes psychological rather than supernatural. Trevor is forced to confront the truth about his past. And once the truth emerges, earlier events suddenly make sense. The strange visions. The paranoia. The mysterious messages. The missing memories. Everything connects. The Machinist is a powerful psychological thriller because it makes the audience experience confusion alongside the main character. You don't simply watch Trevor lose his grip on reality. You lose your grip with him. The Lodge, 2019. Two children are taken to an isolated winter lodge with their father's new girlfriend. The children don't trust her. They believe she may be responsible for their father's decision to leave their family. Then their father suddenly disappears. The three are left alone inside the enormous house. Snow surrounds them. The roads become impossible to travel. And communication with the outside world becomes difficult. At first, the tension is purely psychological. The children are grieving. Grace, their father's girlfriend, is trying to build a relationship with them. Nobody trusts anyone. Then strange things begin happening. Objects disappear. Food goes missing. The temperature inside the house becomes dangerously cold. And the characters begin questioning what is real. Grace has her own traumatic history. She has survived something terrible in the past, and the children know enough about it to use it against her. As the days pass, the psychological pressure becomes unbearable. The children begin manipulating Grace. Grace becomes increasingly unstable. And the isolated lodge becomes a place where nobody knows whom to trust. The movie gradually reveals that the situation is much more carefully constructed than it first appeared. The children may not simply be victims. Grace may not simply be losing her mind. And the truth behind their father's disappearance changes everything. The winter setting makes the movie visually bleak. Snow covers everything. The house feels enormous and empty. And the outside world seems impossibly far away. The story becomes a psychological battle between grief, revenge, and manipulation. Nobody is completely innocent. Nobody is completely safe. And the audience is forced to reconsider who deserves sympathy. The final revelations are disturbing because they show how far people can go when they believe they have been betrayed. The Lodge isn't traditional horror. It's psychological horror built around isolation and emotional manipulation. And sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what is hiding outside the house. It's what people are capable of doing to each other inside it. The Art of Self-Defense, 2019. Casey is a quiet, anxious man who feels invisible. One night, He is brutally attacked while returning home. The experience changes him. He decides that he will never be powerless again. So he joins a local karate dojo. The instructor seems confident, disciplined, powerful. Casey believes he has finally found a place where he can become strong. But the dojo is not what it appears to be. The deeper Casey becomes involved, the stranger the culture becomes. The students are taught unusual ideas about masculinity. Violence is treated as a form of identity. Weakness is mocked. And the instructor demands absolute loyalty. Casey begins changing. He becomes more confident. But he also becomes more aggressive. The movie uses dark comedy to explore toxic masculinity and the desire to become someone other people fear. Jesse Eisenberg plays Casey as a man who desperately wants respect. Alessandro Nivola plays the instructor as someone who understands exactly how to manipulate that desire. The dojo becomes a strange world where violence is presented as strength. But Casey gradually realizes that the people he admired may be deeply damaged themselves. The comedy becomes increasingly dark as the film exposes the absurdity behind the group's philosophy. Eventually, Casey must decide what kind of person he actually wants to become. Does strength mean intimidating other people? Or does it mean refusing to become cruel? The art of self-defense is funny, uncomfortable, and surprisingly thoughtful. It takes a ridiculous premise and turns it into a sharp examination of insecurity, power, and identity. The Endless, 2017. Two brothers return to a strange community they escaped from years earlier. They remember the group as a dangerous cult. But when they watch a mysterious video from the community, they begin wondering whether they left too soon. The brothers decide to return. At first, everything seems peaceful. The people living there are friendly. The environment is beautiful. Nobody appears threatening. But strange things begin happening. Time doesn't seem to behave normally. The brothers encounter evidence that something impossible is happening around the community. People seem trapped inside repeating patterns. Events repeat. Deaths occur. And some residents appear unable to escape. The movie slowly reveals that the community is connected to a mysterious force that exists outside normal human understanding. But the brothers aren't simply trying to escape. They are trying to understand why they were allowed to leave in the first place. The story becomes increasingly philosophical. What is freedom? What makes a life meaningful? Would you rather live safely inside a strange system or risk everything trying to escape? The movie uses cosmic horror without immediately explaining its mythology. That creates a sense of mystery. The audience understands that something enormous is happening, but the characters don't fully understand it either. The brothers' relationship provides the emotional center. They have spent years blaming each other for leaving the community. Now they must work together to understand what is happening. As the mystery grows, the movie connects events from the past with what is happening in the present. The final revelations make the entire story feel much larger. The Endless is a fantastic hidden gem for viewers who enjoy mysterious science fiction, cult stories, and cosmic horror. It doesn't give you every answer. Instead, it gives you enough information to keep thinking about the possibilities. The Dry, 2020. Aaron Falk returns to his hometown after the death of a childhood friend. The death is believed to be murder-suicide. But something about the story doesn't feel right. Falk is a federal agent, but he has personal history with the town. Years earlier, a teenage girl died under mysterious circumstances. Falk was one of the last people connected to her. Returning home forces him to confront memories he tried to leave behind. As he investigates the recent deaths, old secrets begin resurfacing. The town is suffering through an intense drought. The environment is dry, harsh, and unforgiving. People are angry. Families are struggling. And everyone seems to have something they don't want revealed. Falk begins questioning the official explanation. The deeper he goes, the more connections he discovers between the present case and the tragedy from his youth. The movie moves between two timelines, slowly revealing what happened years earlier. Every flashback changes the audience's understanding of the present. The mystery isn't simply who committed the recent crime. It's also what really happened to the girl years ago. Falk realizes that many people in the town remember the past differently. Some are protecting themselves. Some are protecting others. And some simply want the truth to disappear. The harsh landscape creates a strong visual identity. The drought becomes a metaphor for the emotional emptiness of the community. Everything feels dry, exhausted, and damaged. As Falk approaches the truth, old relationships become increasingly dangerous. The final revelations connect the two mysteries in an emotional way. The Dry is a hidden crime gem because it combines mystery with character drama. It's not simply about solving a case. It's about returning to a place where everyone remembers who you used to be. And sometimes the hardest mystery to solve is the one you thought you had already forgotten. The Blackcoat's Daughter, 2015. Two teenage girls are left behind at a private boarding school during winter break. The school is almost empty. The weather is freezing. And something feels wrong. Kat begins experiencing strange visions. She becomes increasingly obsessed with something she believes is inside the school. Rose, meanwhile, is waiting for her parents to arrive. But they don't come. The girls become isolated. The empty halls feel enormous. And Kat's behavior becomes increasingly disturbing. The movie slowly builds an atmosphere of dread. There is no immediate explanation for what is happening. Instead, the audience is given fragments. Strange conversations, unexplained behavior, dark imagery, and glimpses of something that may be supernatural. The story eventually introduces another character whose life appears connected to what happened at the school. But the connection isn't immediately obvious. The movie deliberately jumps between different points of the story, forcing the audience to piece together the timeline. That structure makes the mystery more powerful. Something terrible happened. But what? As the truth emerges, the story becomes a disturbing exploration of loneliness, obsession, and evil. The cold environment reinforces the feeling of isolation. The school isn't simply a setting. It feels like a place where something has been waiting. The characters are surrounded by empty rooms and long hallways. Nobody is coming to help. And the longer the story continues, the more disturbing Kat becomes. The film's final revelations completely change the meaning of earlier scenes. What initially appears to be a simple supernatural story becomes something much more tragic. The Blackcoat's Daughter is a slow-burn horror movie that rewards patience. It doesn't rely on constant scares. Instead, it builds a feeling that something is deeply wrong. And when the truth finally becomes clear, the horror becomes much more emotional. The Hunted, 2003. A former military operative disappears into the wilderness after years of combat. He has become extremely skilled at survival. But something has changed. He isn't simply hiding. He is being hunted. Tommy Lee Jones plays L.T. Bonham, a former military instructor who is asked to track down Aaron Hallam, played by Benicio del Toro. Hallam is a highly trained soldier who has become increasingly unstable after years of combat. The government wants him captured. Bonham is one of the few people capable of finding him. The search takes them deep into the wilderness. Hallam understands how to disappear. He knows how to read tracks. He knows how to create traps. He knows how to survive with almost nothing. Bonham recognizes his skills because he taught him. That makes the pursuit deeply personal. The movie becomes a battle between two men who understand each other's methods. Hallam is not simply running. He is anticipating the hunter. Bonham isn't simply chasing. He's trying to understand what happened to the man he once trained. The film explores the psychological damage caused by war. Hallam's violence isn't presented as simple evil. His experiences have changed him. He has become someone who no longer knows how to return to ordinary life. The wilderness sequences create constant tension. There are few places to hide. Every sound matters. Every footprint can reveal someone's location. The final confrontations between Bonham and Hallam become increasingly physical and emotional. The movie asks whether someone trained to survive war can ever truly return to peace. The Hunted may not be the most famous thriller of its era, but its combination of survival, action, and psychological drama makes it an underrated choice for anyone looking for something intense. The Guest, 2004. The Perfect Host. A businessman invites a stranger into his home. At first, everything seems friendly. But the guest has a hidden agenda. This dark comedy thriller follows John Taylor, a man who finds himself in serious trouble after an unusual encounter gives him the opportunity to enter the home of a wealthy couple. The couple believes they are helping someone in need. Instead, they may have invited danger inside. John is charming, polite, intelligent, and very good at manipulating people. The situation becomes increasingly uncomfortable as the hosts realize that their guest may not be who he claims to be. The movie plays with the idea of hospitality. How much trust should you give a stranger? And how difficult is it to remove someone once you've invited them inside? The story becomes increasingly bizarre as the characters realize they are trapped in a psychological game. John knows how to read people. He understands their weaknesses. And he knows exactly how to use their kindness against them. The film mixes dark humor with suspense, creating an atmosphere where you don't always know whether you should laugh or feel uncomfortable. The house itself becomes a battlefield of manipulation. Every conversation contains hidden motives. Every friendly gesture may have another meaning. And as the night progresses, the hosts begin fighting for control of their own home. The movie's greatest strength is its unpredictability. It doesn't follow the usual thriller formula. Instead, it constantly shifts between comedy, mystery, and psychological tension. The characters aren't simply trying to survive. They're trying to figure out who is manipulating whom. And by the time the truth becomes clear, the entire situation has become something much stranger than anyone expected. This is the kind of movie that proves a simple premise can become incredibly entertaining when the characters are unpredictable. Sometimes the person sitting at your dinner table isn't a guest. They're the reason you should be afraid. Frailty, 2001. A mysterious man walks into an FBI office and claims that he knows the identity of a killer. His story sounds impossible. He says the killer was his own father. But then he reveals something even stranger. His father believed he had been chosen by God to destroy demons disguised as human beings. As a child, the narrator watched his father receive what he believed were divine instructions. The father claimed that ordinary people could secretly be demons, and he believed it was his responsibility to destroy them. The children were forced to witness his actions. At first, the younger son believes his father is simply losing his mind, but his older brother believes the father. That difference becomes the central conflict. The movie constantly makes the audience question what is real. Is the father mentally ill? Is the son telling the truth? Are the victims innocent? Or is something supernatural actually happening? The story is presented through memories, and every new revelation changes the meaning of what came before. Bill Paxton directs and stars in the film, creating a disturbing portrait of a father who genuinely believes he is doing the right thing. The horror isn't simply that he commits violence. It's that he believes the violence is necessary. The children become trapped between obedience and morality. If their father is wrong, innocent people are dying. If their father is right, refusing to help him could have terrifying consequences. The FBI investigation in the present day adds another layer of mystery. The man telling the story seems to know exactly what happened. But can he be trusted? The movie's final revelation is one of its greatest strengths. It completely changes the audience's understanding of the story. Details that seemed supernatural may have another explanation. Or perhaps the supernatural explanation was the correct one all along. Frailty is a hidden gem because it doesn't simply ask whether evil exists. It asks whether people can recognize evil when they believe they are doing good. And that question is much more frightening. The Cloverhitch Killer, 2018. A teenage boy begins to suspect that his father may be hiding a horrifying secret. Tyler Burnside lives in a seemingly normal American family. His father is respected in the community. He's a good provider. He attends church. He appears trustworthy. But Tyler discovers something disturbing that makes him question everything he knows. Could his father actually be a serial killer? The idea seems impossible. Yet the evidence begins accumulating. Tyler starts investigating quietly. He can't tell his mother. He can't immediately involve the police. Because what if he's wrong? What if he destroys his family based on a misunderstanding? But what if he's right? The movie creates tension by placing the audience inside Tyler's uncertainty. His father isn't presented as an obvious monster. He behaves normally. He jokes. He spends time with his family. He seems like an ordinary American father. That makes the possibility even more disturbing. Tyler begins discovering connections between his father's behavior and unsolved crimes from the past. The more he learns, the more frightened he becomes. But investigating someone inside your own family creates a unique danger. The person you're watching knows you. He knows your habits. He knows when you're lying. And he knows what you're afraid of. Tyler begins using secret methods to collect evidence. But his investigation puts him in an increasingly dangerous position. The movie also explores how difficult it can be to accept that someone you love may be capable of terrible things. Tyler doesn't want his father to be guilty. He wants there to be another explanation. But evidence doesn't always disappear simply because you don't want it to be true. The suspense builds slowly. There are no constant attacks. Instead, the horror comes from watching a family member sitting across the dinner table while the audience knows something may be terribly wrong. The final confrontation forces Tyler to make an impossible decision. Protect his family, or expose the truth. The Cloverhitch Killer is disturbing because it takes the idea of a serial killer and places it inside the safest environment imaginable. Sometimes evil doesn't look like a stranger. Sometimes it looks like someone everyone already trusts. Searching, 2018. A father wakes up one morning and realizes his teenage daughter is missing. At first, he assumes she is simply somewhere with friends. Then the hours pass. She doesn't come home. She doesn't answer her phone. And nobody knows where she is. David Kim begins searching for her. But instead of investigating through traditional movie scenes, almost the entire story unfolds through computer screens, messages, video calls, social media accounts, and digital records. At first, the format may seem unusual. Then it becomes incredibly effective. David realizes that he may not know his daughter as well as he thought. He discovers conversations she had, people she knew, places she visited, things she never told him. The deeper he investigates, the more complicated her disappearance becomes. Every digital clue creates another possibility. David contacts police. He searches through her online accounts. He contacts people he has never met. And slowly, he realizes that the internet contains an enormous amount of information about his daughter's life. But information doesn't always reveal the truth. Sometimes it creates more questions. The movie constantly changes direction. A person who seems suspicious may have a completely innocent explanation. Someone who appears helpful may be hiding something. And David's own assumptions about his daughter begin falling apart. John Cho gives the story an emotional center. His character isn't a perfect father. He made mistakes. He didn't always understand his daughter. And now he is desperately trying to reconstruct her life after she has disappeared. The digital format also makes the mystery feel strangely realistic. Messages can be deleted. Accounts can be hidden. Videos can be manipulated. People can create completely different identities online. As David gets closer to the truth, the case becomes much larger than a simple missing person investigation. The final revelations force the audience to reconsider earlier scenes. Details that seemed insignificant suddenly become important. And the movie proves that sometimes the biggest mystery isn't finding evidence. It's knowing which evidence to trust. Searching is a brilliant example of how filmmakers can take modern technology and turn it into a storytelling device. Because in today's world, someone can disappear physically while leaving behind an enormous digital footprint. Wind River, 2017. In the frozen wilderness of Wyoming, a young woman's body is discovered in the snow. There are no easy answers. The environment is brutal. The location is isolated. And the people living there are used to danger. Corey Lambert is a wildlife tracker who discovers the body while searching for predators. The victim is a young Native American woman. Her death immediately raises questions. Was she murdered? Did she run away? How did she survive outside in the freezing conditions? And why was she so far from home? FBI agent Jane Banner arrives to investigate, but she quickly realizes that she is completely unprepared for the environment. She needs Corey's help. He understands the land. He understands the weather. And he knows how easily a person can disappear in the wilderness. Together, they begin investigating the circumstances surrounding the woman's death. But every answer leads to another question. The movie moves slowly, but that pace creates tension rather than boredom. The landscape itself feels like an antagonist. The snow covers evidence. The cold creates danger. And the enormous distances between locations make help almost impossible. Corey is also dealing with personal grief. His own daughter died years earlier under tragic circumstances, and the new case forces him to confront emotions he has never fully escaped. That gives the investigation a deeper meaning. This isn't simply a detective solving a crime. It's a grieving father trying to understand another family's pain. Jane, meanwhile, becomes increasingly determined to uncover the truth despite having limited resources. As the investigation progresses, the story reveals a disturbing chain of events involving isolation, violence, and people who believed they could escape consequences simply because nobody was watching. The final confrontation is intense because the movie has spent so much time building the environment and characters. When violence finally arrives, it feels sudden and brutal. There are no glamorous heroes. There is only survival. Wind River is more than a murder mystery. It's a story about grief, isolation, injustice, and the terrible things that can happen when vulnerable people are forgotten. The frozen landscape makes the film visually unforgettable. But it is the emotional weight that stays with you. Sometimes the most dangerous place isn't where everyone can see you. It's where nobody is looking. A Simple Plan, 1998. What would you do if you suddenly discovered millions of dollars that didn't belong to you? That is the simple question that turns a simple plan into an increasingly disturbing story about greed, desperation, and human nature. Hank Mitchell is an ordinary man living a quiet life in a small Minnesota town. He isn't rich, powerful, or particularly ambitious. He simply wants a stable life with his wife and hopes to provide a better future for his family. Everything changes when Hank and his brother Jacob discover a crashed airplane containing a huge amount of cash. At first, the answer seems obvious. They should report it. But the money is too tempting. Jacob wants to keep it. Their friend Lou also becomes involved. The three men convince themselves that keeping the money will solve their problems. They create a plan. They will hide the cash until they are certain nobody is looking for it. Then they will divide it. Simple. Except nothing about the situation remains simple for long. Hank begins realizing that the money isn't simply money. It's evidence. Someone owns it. Someone wants it back. And whoever comes looking for it may be willing to kill. As the characters attempt to protect their secret, they begin making increasingly dangerous decisions. One lie requires another. One mistake requires a cover-up. One cover-up creates another problem. The movie's greatest strength is watching ordinary people slowly become capable of extraordinary things. Hank isn't naturally violent. He isn't a criminal. But fear changes him. Jacob, meanwhile, becomes increasingly unpredictable. Lou wants his share and doesn't care about the consequences. Their friendship begins collapsing under the pressure. The snow-covered Minnesota landscape adds to the atmosphere. Everything feels quiet, empty, isolated. And that isolation makes the characters' decisions even more frightening. Because when something goes wrong, there may be nobody around to help. The film constantly asks whether people are naturally good or whether circumstances determine who they become. Hank wants to believe he can control the situation. But every time he thinks the problem is solved, another complication appears. Eventually, the money becomes less important than survival. The people who once trusted each other begin wondering who will betray whom first. And by the final act, the consequences become devastating. A Simple Plan isn't really a movie about finding money. It's about what money reveals. It reveals greed, fear, jealousy, and the darkest parts of ordinary people. That's what makes this hidden gem so powerful. Because the scariest question isn't what you would do if you found millions of dollars. It's what you might become after you decided to keep it. Finding a genuinely great hidden movie can feel like discovering a secret that everyone else somehow missed. These 15 films prove that incredible stories don't always need enormous budgets, famous franchises, or endless promotion to make an impact. From crime mysteries and survival thrillers to psychological nightmares, dark comedies, supernatural mysteries, and emotionally powerful dramas, each one offers something different. So the next time you're browsing Tubi and nothing obvious looks interesting, don't give up. Dig a little deeper. Somewhere among those overlooked titles could be a movie that completely surprises you. And sometimes the most unforgettable movie night begins with a film you had never even heard of before.